Would you like to attach a face to that voice? When you subscribe to the Book Interrupted YouTube channel, you get to see everybody, as well as check out a bunch of extra Book Interrupted videos and music content. Visit the Book Interrupted YouTube channel to see what you've been missing.
Parental guidance is recommended because this episode has mature topics and strong language. Here are some moments you can look forward to during this episode of Book Interrupted.
It's so simple for her, right? Like it's like math. Nope. I'm also a human. And as humans, we are the same.
Pretend I'm not offended when somebody asks me to get coffee or that I'm the eye candy for the booth. Like I don't, right? Like that's embarrassing.
Mrs. John Smith. I'm like, no, your name. And she's like, Mrs. John Smith. I'm like, no, like,
your name's not John.
Your name is not John.
She's telling everyone at home how to poison their horrible husbands. Like, I get it, but like, get it.
Yeah. Like she had that pencil behind her ear, probably because she's going to stab whoever else is coming to her. Like, I love that. And I love that she's like, I wish I had more pencils.
Did the screenwriter never read the book? Do you think? Why would you alter something that's so deeply important and ingrained in a character?
And in the series, it didn't seem like that. It seemed more cold. I didn't find Elizabeth Zott in the book cold.
And I'm playing Calvin and Sarah's playing 6:30.
They were speaking more about the feminist narrative that, oh, here we go again, that it's men who are, terrible to women. So that was the
legit
angle.
In the 60s. That was actually true.
Mind, body, and soul. Information is the goal. Try to learn something new without being distracted.
Mind, body, and soul. Information is the goal. Trying to learn something new without being disrupted. Mind, body, and soul. Inspiration is the goal. Interrupted.
Welcome to Book Interrupted, a book club for busy people to connect and one that celebrates life's interruptions. During this book cycle, we're reading Virginia's book pick, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This book was made into a TV miniseries in 2023 and stars Brie Larson, Pullman, Naomi King, Kevin Sussman, and Patrick Walker. In the early 1960s, a working chemist, Elizabeth Zott, is not your average woman. Like science, though, life is unpredictable. She finds herself not only a single mother, but also the star of a cooking show, Supper at 6. Elizabeth's unusual chemist approach to cooking proves revolutionary. But as her following grows, not everyone is happy. Because as it turns out, Elizabeth Zott isn't just teaching women how to cook. She's daring them to change the status quo. Let's listen in to this episode's group discussion.
So first of all, I'm super happy to be back here with all of you chatting about books that have made it to the big screen or little screen, right? So my choice was the book called Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. It is also available on Apple TV as episodes as well. So it was on the little screen. So Bonnie Garmus, it's her debut novel, and it tells a story about Elizabeth Zott. So it's set in the 1960s in Southern California. It's a romantic comedy. But what's interesting is it has a lot of undertones, actually not even undertones, overtones of feminism and challenging the status quo, which is really interesting. And so, yeah, it's a great book. So I'm happy that we can dive in and chat about it.
So I read the book before our season.
Okay.
And loved it. And then on our season 3 finale, I was like, I already know it's going to be my favorite. It's an amazing book. And to have that as her debut book.
I know, right? Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really like the book. And I agree, it's an overtone of feminism in it. I just really like Elizabeth Zott's character so much.
What do you like about it?
The people from Supper at 6, they feel inspired by her. I feel inspired by her too. Like she just constantly does. It's hard to do. It's hard to say, no, that's not true. Because I've worked in industries where it's male dominated, and I play the game and pretend I'm not offended when somebody asks me to get coffee or that I'm the eye candy for the booth. Like I don't, right? Like that's embarrassing, but I'm just like, oh, ha, ha, ha.
Mhm.
But she doesn't do that. I found her very inspiring because she's like, and occasionally to certain men I worked with that I thought could hear it, I would say things like, yeah, don't do that. They'll say something like, oh, I'm going to hell, aren't I? Ha, 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 ha. I'm like, yeah, I'm really trying to prevent you from doing that. Like, so sometimes in my life, I would say that to certain men, but in a room full of men, I wouldn't. And I found that inspiring that she just always, she wasn't being pushed into the box she was forced into because she just was like, that's not right. And I refuse to go into it, even though you keep on beating me down.
Yeah, she was so true to herself.
Yeah.
Yes. So true to herself. Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah. Right. Because oftentimes it wasn't easy for her. Right. She
Extra
could have
hard in the
just-
60s.
100%. Yes. Right. Yeah. No, it's true. And it was interesting how even Mrs. Frask, that she also, I heard one time it being described as the crab mentality where women also try to pull other women down. I was thinking of her about this crab mentality, and it's interesting how you couldn't raise a woman up back then, like I don't know. She was like saying that Elizabeth was riding on Calvin's coattails. So I thought that was really interesting. Yeah.
Well, and everyone just assumed it.
Yeah.
No one even considered that she might not be sleeping with him, or she might actually be a gifted chemist herself, or any of it, because she was a woman. So automatically she couldn't be A, B, C, D, E. So you must be doing F.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What do you think, Kim, of it in general?
Well, I didn't know that it was that writer's first book. So that makes it even that much better, because I love the story anyway for everything that Sarah said and what you've already mentioned. But I also really love the way the story's told. I love a story that like unfolds and starts somewhere else and then goes back in time for a minute, and just the storytelling itself. The story itself is great, but the way the story was told was also a huge kind of positive for me in that experience. And yeah, Elizabeth Zott's character is awesome. I love exactly what Sarah was saying. She's so true to herself. I just love how like it's so simple for her, right? Like it's like math. Nope. I'm also a human, and as humans, we are the same. Like we are equal. And so, and I love how like confused and incredulous she is when people are like, well, you can't possibly. And she's like, why can't I possibly? I have 2 legs and 3, I was going to say 3 arms. I have 2 legs and 3 arms. Of course I can juggle.
Different book.
But you know what I mean? Like she'd like say some biological fact, right? Like, well, I have as much oxygen as the human lung. So of course I can do that, like whatever. And I like just how simplified it was, because it gets complicated and confusing. And she's just like 1 + 1 = 2. Like, what are you doing?
And I love too that Calvin had the exact same mindset towards that as well. And I feel like that was their catalyst or their TSN turning moment in their relationship, when he apologized for thinking she was a secretary, not for throwing up on her, but saying like this. I would imagine from her point of view, that's like the most lovely thing you could possibly say to her, that would make her see him in a different light. But I love that Calvin also was sharing the exact same sentiments about, well, why would you say you're facing discrimination, gender discrimination? You're a human, you're a chemist. And I thought it was really good for him to also be saying that as well. And also like a big eye opener that you couldn't imagine unless you go through it, right? The discrimination, being held back, less opportunities, not being able to meet your full potential, at that time because you are a woman, so I thought that was interesting too.
I think that also it was a relief that Calvin didn't need to be convinced of the discrimination or the feminist point of view, but he was originally a little bit blind to it by virtue of being a male. Like that's not something he's spending his time really considering. But when she told him about it, he was like, oh, and like, again, oh yes, you're right. That adds up. I'm with you. Like, it wasn't just like, are you sure? Maybe you're being sensitive, all of that shit. Right. So,
And I feel like in the episodes on Apple, they did a better job of exemplifying that Calvin really understood it. Do you remember in that episode how when she went to that review board, the science review board, Calvin wanted her to be in first position for the study they were doing, and they said no, right? You could see it firsthand. So I thought they did a better job in that, or an even better job in the episodes on that as well. So highlighting that too.
I didn't like, now that you're talking about the episodes, I didn't like them as much as the book.
Me neither.
And yeah, I thought that it was interesting because I was sure, like, I was like, yes, like I love this book and now I can't wait to watch this show. I think it's because of whatever, I can't point out specifically, but the like minute changes, because there were changes between the book and the episodes in the way that the story was told. There was nothing wrong with the originals. Like, it was very excellent, in fact. And just the tweaks here and this, that, and being a little bit different. I understand, I guess, like, for example, with the assault by the professor when she was going for her master's. I can understand how it would be a challenge to try to lay that out the way the book laid it up. You have a mini series, limited edition, these limited series, you can actually do it. So just do it, right? Make that one episode that's only her at college, and we'll all realize, like, oh shit, I don't know. I didn't finish it. The Apple TV ones, I didn't care to go back to them. No, I didn't even care. I'm like, I consumed it and I loved it, and now I don't really need to consume it again because it's not right, like, it's not what I loved. It's just ever so different, but
the end was different too. I want to talk about that then, since you didn't watch the end. I'll say, so the book, the end, I cried because his mom and her are hugging because they both had the same kind of horrible discrimination their entire lives that ruined their lives. And they're holding each other and crying over Calvin and their lives and everything that happened to them. And it was a really moving part of the book. And in the movie, they made it like she was contemplating if she's going to be part of her family. Do you know what I mean? Like, or if she's going to let her help her with funding and stuff. Like, it was like, I'm going to think a bit over. It wasn't as now we're immediately a family. Do you know what I mean? Which the book
because we've got this shared experience.
It was like, I'm inviting you to dinner. You're on the family tree. We're all together. This is our family now. Instantly, you're accepted. I understand what happened to you. Do you know what I mean? Whereas,
let's move forward together.
And in the series, it didn't seem like that. It seemed very more cold. I didn't find Elizabeth Zott in the book cold. She just was righteous or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, she was like, this is right. This is wrong. Here are the facts. But she was a caring person. It's like when she talked about when Harriet got abused, and she immediately went on her show and did a thing about poison mushrooms and talked about basically abuse.
Right? Like, I remember now. I was actually torn because there's probably a narrative around, like, oh, once again, showing a family of color with dysfunction in it. I bet you there's a line of, I want to say questioning, but that's not right, where people would be like, that's not cool. Like, why isn't the white family, like, whatever, right? Because that's like a low-key version of racism. Like, look at every time we show a Black person, they're doing something negative or experiencing something negative. They're not successful. So I did appreciate that the Apple version didn't venture into Harriet being an abused wife or the husband being whatever. Like, that's fine, but still, it was part of the story. I just wanted the story to stay the same the way that I read it. That's a hard one though, because I can see the other side where it's like, no, we're going to stay away from portraying people of color in this way.
Definitely. I preferred the way they did portray them, but that they took out that narrative,
and then it changed, like, because a lot of things were kind of attached to that.
Yeah. Some of the reviews I was reading was saying just that they were speaking more about the feminist narrative that, oh, here we go again, that it's men who are, terrible to women. So that was the
legit
angle.
In the 60s. That was actually true. We're talking about the 60s here.
Yes. Right. Yeah. I know. I don't understand this total blind ignorance, but that was some of the comments to her. So not necessarily the racist part of it, but more of like the feminist part of it. So I found the same thing about the episodes. I feel like some of the sentiments were the same, but they changed it too much. And I really would imagine that Bonnie Garmus wouldn't be really happy about that ending, because it's almost like a culmination.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Like, of the women going through constant shittiness in their lives because of their women in the 60s. all throughout really every generation, but still, let's just say the 60s.
Yes, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You know, and then it's this wonderful culmination that they understand each other and that they have each other for support this in this like womanhood. So it's really, I'd imagine Bonnie, if she ever came on, would not
Yes.
would
It's
not
an
love
important theme that got altered,
is.
right? And it's
Yes.
like, this is the main theme. And that's one of the main ways that she drove it home in the
Yeah.
beautiful putting the puzzle together way. And they changed it.
it. Yeah.
Probably because there's a male executive
Yeah.
deciding how we're doing it.
Right. It's true. Okay, let me ask you about the dog then. What did you think about the dog being the narrator in part of it for the book?
I was cool with it. It was
Yeah.
like weird
Loved
for a
it.
second, and then I was fine with
Mhm.
it, especially because the dog is also super smart,
Yeah.
right? Like it just makes sense. I hated how they changed everything in the book about the dog.
Mhm. A lot
You mean
about
the
the book that
movie?
they didn't need to.
No,
Right? They didn't need
Yes.
to do it. Yeah, it's weird.
they didn't
Even how the
at
dog came into
all.
their lives. Yeah.
They changed
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
It's
like
weird.
it just made sense in the book, and in the show, it was like, why are you changing it? There's no need to change this.
Yeah, agreed. See, I found it kind of annoying. I will say when I first was reading it, I was like, give me a freaking break. That's dog. Like, but it grew on me because the dog was an extension of their family, right? Like really smart and helping out in science and chemistry and the experiments, the cooking. And so it made sense as it went on. But when I was first reading it, I was like, oh my God, I
was like
wasn't loving it.
It was a good way to add some context, right? That wasn't from Elizabeth's point of view and wasn't from Calvin's point of view.
Mhm.
And, you know, like whatever, it's a talking dog.
No, I loved it.
Mhm.
I found it so endearing. I even put in my personal journal because he was like protective, and also the doctor being like, okay, you got a dog, you got an erg, and you got a neighbor. You're good. You're good. You're going to be
Yeah.
fine. Like,
Yeah,
I
that was
just loved
nice.
all of it. I loved the character of the dog, how much he was part of the family and what he was thinking all the time. And like Kim, because he was smart. If it was just like, I would be like, who cares about this dog? But I really cared about the dog. Like, I was so invested in 630. I was like, I love this dog so much. Anyway.
Oh, that's cute.
I think though, this is
Mhm.
against everything I've been saying so far. If they did the dog's voice in the show, did they do the dog's voice in the show?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think I would have liked it either. Right. If now
I
I'm
would've been back.
watching the internal narrative of the dog in the show, like literally some voice actor is saying, you know what I mean? I may
Mhm.
have liked the show even less than I already liked it. Maybe if they kept it the exact same, I might have gone okay with a narrator for the dog, but
I think some things don't translate well. Did you guys ever read the book The Beach? You know, the Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yes. I didn't read the book.
yeah, I didn't read the book, watched the movie.
You didn't read. Oh, okay. So they had a part in there. You may not remember because it's so long ago, but in the movie, it almost had like a video game quality to it at some part in the movie.
Was he on drugs?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, do you remember that? He was almost like losing his mind a bit, I think is more of it. So, but he was also in a marijuana field. But so in the book, it was done a million times better than the movie. So I think some things like that don't translate very well, you know?
Well, I also
So-
want to challenge like directors. I think that they could, but maybe it's like a little more creativity or like test it out and see that actually translate, because it is hard to bring a vision in your head to, you know, the screen. I'm not discounting that, but
Mhm.
that probably wasn't the only way to portray that scene. And maybe
Yeah.
a different director would have done it in a way that did translate well.
Interesting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Or at least a better way for sure.
This is what I want to say. Everything
Mhm.
could translate well, but yes, some things don't translate well because the person who translated it didn't necessarily get it. Like they didn't hit the mark with it. Like they may have understood it, but they haven't been able to literally translate it. But I think that with enough trying, which nobody has time to do because money, like whatever,
Yeah.
we could.
Yeah. It's interesting to see with a different director. Yeah.
Well, and then you can't please all the people all the time, right? Maybe some people that's like their favorite scene in the movie ever. Like,
I don't think so.
you know,
Yeah.
I remember that scene being like, this is weird.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the book, it was okay. Almost like the talking dog, right? Like it was,
Yeah.
it worked out okay. Yeah. Well, you know what I found interesting in the episodes as well? They focused more on the cooking than they did the book.
Yeah. And not even the good
Yeah.
stuff. Like not even the good stuff.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was
And
really interesting too. Yeah.
They sped into it too. Like
Yes. Right. Yeah. That it was
it
always
was-
a part, and it wasn't, right?
And they missed pieces that were key again to the feminism and the whatever, the arguing about the set. It just
Sexy
wasn't
clothes.
the whole thing wasn't translated well, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder who directed
I'll
the
giggle.
Apple show.
I'll giggle it.
There you go.
Yeah,
I wonder if that
Google
would be
it.
it.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
think that too. The point was that she was inspiring people, women,
Yes.
and the rest of the world, being like, you deserve to be taken seriously.
Yes.
We all do.
And that's an important job, and bringing
Yes.
science into cooking. And yeah, I loved how it was in the book, that viewpoint of equality was from the get-go. I loved it. But her last name, about marriage, I wasn't 100% sure. I think they should have gone into that a little bit more. But last names, and even she talked about how, because this happened to me, so I'll ask you guys if it's ever happened to you as well, but where a woman goes by the first and last name. So my name is Mrs. John Smith.
Yeah.
And so she talked about that, right? And I actually had that experience one time. That was a million years ago. And it was one of my first jobs. And I was filling out applications for people for like this furniture company. And it was, like one of those don't pay for 2 years. So I had to get people's financials. So I asked this woman for her name. She's like, Mrs. John Smith. I'm like, no, your name. And she's like, Mrs. John Smith. I'm like, no, like,
Your name's not John.
Your name is not John.
your name, right? And so, I mean, I was young and I wasn't going to push the issue, but I remember at that time thinking, this is so freaking weird. You've lost your whole identity. Like your entire identity is gone because you got married. Like, it was so whack to me when I was 17. Yeah.
So there are 5 directors. Each person did 2 episodes each. They're all women.
Oh,
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah,
Okay. Apple TV. That's great.
Like in this day and age, you better know.
No, I know, but it's not necessarily true.
I want to know is it a screenplay for TV?
Who wrote the screenplay?
Yeah.
I thought the casting for Elizabeth was good.
Same. I like her.
I liked her a lot, and I think she did a good job portraying Elizabeth. I didn't like the series as much as the book, because the book, it just had so much to it.
Yeah.
The mother talking about how, because she was an unwed mother and she wouldn't sign the papers for her son to be put up to adoption, that they just let her be in labor at 17 by herself.
Yeah, in that room,
Like stuff
right?
like that. And
Yeah.
then said that Calvin died so she could adopt them out. Like things like that. Or the photographer totally missing the point when he went to the funeral. Or originally the Life magazine guy, although he switched after, realizing she
Right.
opened up and said everything.
Mhm.
But originally being like, I don't get her. Like,
Mhm.
let's talk about your hair. Let's talk about your dress. And she's
Right.
like, did you watch the show?
Yeah, it just missed her point altogether.
Like there's so much
Yeah.
in the book. There's so much depth and information. And then the priest like lying because he wanted money, because he wanted to get out of the orphanage. He didn't want to do like
Right.
there was just so much in the book that
Yeah.
they left out in the series that made it less amazing.
Mhm.
The screenwriter is Lee Eisenberg.
Hmm.
That is a
Never seen that.
gentleman.
Oh,
Gotcha. So some of the criticism as well is that of the book was that it was too basic. So did you
Basic?
I know. Did you? So I'm
Basic.
I take it you don't you don't agree. I didn't
didn't
agree,
think
but
that
was
it
some of
was
the
basic at
criticism.
all. I thought it was the thing that I admire about this author is the way she told that story. And I think
Yeah.
the way she told that story, she had to hold a bunch of ideas in her head at the same time and tell it like, this is going to be probably more confusing, but I'm trying to simplify it. Say this story has 10 parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And she had to tell it 4, 3, 1, 5, 9, 7, 2, 8, 10. And you're like, cool. Like the way everything came together with little blips of information, and the fact that the daughter bumps into the guy. Well, I can't
penthouse.
even remember because I'm confusing the movie and the book, but I liked in the book how that priest plays a part and he's part of the history. The book was perfectly fine. It was really, really good. And it wasn't basic at all.
Oh, it's
not at
interesting.
all.
Like I loved like the subtle things. Like she had that pencil behind her ear, probably because she's going to stab whoever else is coming to her. Like I loved that. And I love that she's like, I wish I had more pencils. Like,
Yes. Best line.
she's so great.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. And you know what? So when we did the promo pics for this, I hadn't read the book or seen the series. So I Googled it to get a sense of it. So I did my hair in victory curls.
Mhm.
Mm.
I didn't put the pencil in. So
Oh,
like after I read the book, I'm like, oh my gosh,
you should have
I
been
missed.
like holding a pencil, you know, like
I know. So now I
Or-
wish I'd read the book before I did those promo pics because I just missed one of the biggest parts of that book was this
you could have
pencil.
literally dressed up as a pencil.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
could have changed
My next
everything.
Halloween costume.
Yeah.
I'll be like, you're a pencil. I'm like, no, I'm Elizabeth Zott.
So funny.
But it was nice. I love it. Yeah, I mean, the pencil was so great, right? Because even like the whole, commentary about not a pen, but a pencil because you could erase, everyone makes mistakes and you can erase it. So I was really kicking myself afterwards for in those victory curls, not having a pencil. But anyway.
Yeah, like that was huge to me because they
Huge.
kind of pointed it out and someone mentioned it. And then later on, you realize you're like, oh, that's like the bear in the woods. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like she
Yeah.
carries a pencil.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe
She's
we
ready.
maybe we could Photoshop it in.
she's really regretting it.
I
How
am.
about when she-
I'm not kidding. It got me into the knife. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah.
How about when she pulled out that knife for the meeting with the producer? Is it producer? No, he's station manager or something.
Yeah, the dink.
Yeah.
And then he had a heart
The
attack.
jerk.
Yeah.
And then he had a
Yes,
heart
that's
attack. And
good.
she was so calm and he couldn't figure it out. Like in the book, it was so much better than the series. Because in the book,
Yes.
you're reading him being like, why the hell is she not doing what she's supposed to be doing? Like crying and begging for a job and what the
Yeah.
hell. And then he gets close and she just pulls out her knife. And she waited till like she was just about to be
Right.
assaulted. I just
Yeah.
loved her so
Yeah.
much. Like you're just like,
Yeah.
yes.
And then
Then you saved his
outsmarted
life
him,
after.
right? Before she calls 911, gets him to agree to, all the contract stuff, just outsmarted him. I thought that was really great too.
So great.
I know, it's good, right?
It's
Yeah.
a really good book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend it.
Me
The
too.
book.
You know what I love too? Do you guys watch any of the cooking programs on TV?
No, not only reality TV ones. I watch like Next Level Chef.
Oh, that. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I watched, there's a Chinese one on YouTube.
Walk with Jan.
No, it's a woman who went back to her traditional village and you see it from her like growing the plant to making the food.
Oh, I feel like I've seen that.
It's really good. It's like Lu Zhu or something like that. Her name is Li Zhu or something. I'm obsessed with it. Anyway,
Oh, I
I'm
might look
obsessed
that
with
up.
it. I'll
We
send it to
watched
you.
it-
I'm
Yeah,
obsessed with
please
it.
do. Yeah.
It's really good. Anyway.
So I mention it because we watch a lot in my house about cooking shows, and probably, I don't know, in the early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s, there was a guy named Alton Brown, and he broke down cooking into chemistry.
Oh,
Which
cool.
was, yeah, it was
Wow.
it's really cool. If you get a chance to see him, he totally breaks it down and says why you do certain cooking applications, the reason why, like why do you let a steak rest before you cut into it? And
It's so important.
yes, and I learned
Like
how to
not
make
resting a
great
steak, but
pancakes.
like that information.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And resting a steak, I guess.
Yeah. I learned how to make really delicious pancakes because of him. So, because you have to like temper the pan first. And it was really neat. Yeah. So anyway, it reminded me of that and I loved it. I love like the whole concept.
Hold on, wait. That's so true because the first pancake always sucks. So I always make the tiniest pancakes. I'm like, and then I'm like, I'll just have this tiny pancake, and now I can start making pancakes.
Now they're all golden brown.
That's
Yes.
why it did. Yeah.
Look at that.
Is
I
that
know,
what
right?
tempering the pan means? Sacrificing a pancake?
No,
Pancakes.
you should probably just warm it up before you start, where I don't. Is that right?
Oh, I do. And I
Yeah.
still have a dud pancake to start.
What exactly is tempering? Is it just you turn it on the heat for a while before you start?
Well, I think that's it. And then how I took
Okay.
it was I do put the one pancake in and then move it around the pan, sort of get it. What's the chemistry of that?
But get like the pan used to the
Swivel it?
pancake
I guess, right? Yeah. Okay.
because the first pancake is always a dud.
It's always a
Yes,
dud.
always.
Yeah.
Okay, so tempering the pan is like you're
Like-
supposed to get rid of one pancake.
Yeah.
That's the way-
You're
So he
supposed
broke
to-
down the
already did
chemistry
that.
behind that. Yeah, neat, right?
Oh, great. That's cool. I already do
Yeah.
it. So I'm like, this one's going to be a
There you
dud. Doesn't
go.
matter what I do.
Well, there you go.
It doesn't matter what I do.
Great.
I know it's neat, right? Like Shane, my husband, he cooks a lot, but in really interesting things like with aubergines, soaking them in
Ooh.
salt first, to help with the rubbery skin, or certain mushrooms that you don't use the stems on. Yeah, it's just really interesting stuff when you like.
So this salt soak, is it to
Yeah.
help remove the skin or to make it more palatable? I can never say this word. Palatable?
Palatable?
Palpable? No,
Yeah.
not palpable.
Palatable.
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 We're trying to make it less
Maybe
palpable.
somebody who listens to this could like write it phonetically and then in the.
It would be nice
the-
if anyone who listened to this would talk to us, actually, while we're talking about it. Bookies.
Yes.
Nobody calls, nobody emails. Is anyone even rating us? I feel like we're being listened to by a bunch of bots only.
No, we're not.
Well, prove me
My
wrong.
mom does. And Renee. Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see if other people have interesting comments about cooking and chemistry.
Sure will be. I bet you we'll get radio silence. That's all we ever get when we ask for people to talk to us.
Oh,
No.
fun.
I know. We get mentions and people contact us that were like authors or agents and that kind of stuff all the time. But we love your show. Well, we want our author to be on it. It's like, okay, great. Can you like and subscribe?
Yeah.
Please?
Yeah.
A comment? Anything?
Leave a comment, rate.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please do. Oh, another thing I was thinking about too with the episode, you know what I think they missed about Calvin? His lip chewing. I thought that was a big part in the book that they left out.
Yeah, he mentioned
don't
it a
remember.
lot. Yeah, he chews his
Oh.
lips.
Yeah, but it was like woven into the book a lot. So I thought that was interesting that they totally didn't pick up on that.
I think having Calvin as a ghost worked for the show,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't like it. She wouldn't talk to a pretend
Right.
Calvin. She's not religious, or she wouldn't be talking to a pretend Calvin.
You know what I
Right.
did like?
Mm.
And I feel like it's a testament to, like, I don't know, her core. You would think she was raised by really smart, put together, ahead of their time kind of parents. And it was actually the total opposite. And yet still the outcome was this super strong, true to herself, really great woman. I'm sure the death of her brother probably had an impact on like a commitment to not letting anyone tell you to be something you're not, maybe. But I just thought that that's a little, not surprising, but it was like a little bit of an interesting twist, because I guess where do you get the strength to be so committed to yourself without any validation from anyone ever until you like meet Calvin? You know what I mean? Like,
But I think also they kind of touched on it a little bit, because she says that's why she doesn't want her daughter coming to the show, because she doesn't want to be performing like her dad. She doesn't want to pretend to be something she's not ever, because that's what she disliked about her father so much, that he was never who he said he was. And then also probably also her brother killing himself because he wasn't allowed to be himself. I think those two things would play into, I'm only going to be true to myself ever. And whatever happens, happens. But I won't be that. Yeah.
what did her mom do again? Was she just like a sidekick of her dad, or?
And then she had to flee to Brazil for tax evasion.
Yeah, and I think she was married a whole bunch of times too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the mom and the dad were
Yeah.
not together forever.
No, he went to prison
Yeah.
for his evangelical,
Oh, and then she got married a bunch after that.
and she was married before that too. Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
she a gold digger?
She was only interested in money.
Yeah.
That's what it mentioned a lot, that she
Yeah.
just cared about the money. And he went to jail because he actually killed 2 people with one of his.
Oh, that's right.
With his pistachio explosions.
Yeah,
you're
and
right.
that's how she got interested in chemistry, because of the pistachios. So that's why she went into chemistry.
Right.
When she liked her dad before the veil was lifted or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
just so much in that book. Do you see?
There's
Like
so
so
much.
many layers of interesting, even the rowing
And Calvin's history too.
Right.
Yes.
and the rowing. Like there's
Yeah, like
so
they didn't do anything
much.
about the rowing. She's just all of a sudden pregnant, kicking ass on an erg. There's no like, examples of sexism while he tries to bring her to the thing,
Right.
and knowing that she can't swim. Like, was that a part in the show?
Yes, in the show, but he discovered it differently.
He had to like rescue her, didn't he?
Yeah, in the book, he found out much later And then he didn't have to teach her to swim. That didn't happen. In the movie, he found it right away and then taught her how to swim. It was
Yeah.
like a romantic moment. That didn't happen in the book.
I didn't love that in the
Neither.
show at all. Yeah.
And I don't
And
know that they
it-
really captured like the closeness of the relationship between the producer and her,
Oh,
which
that,
I
yeah.
loved. And actually, you know what I did like about the show? How you think that that daughter is someone else. Like, you know how they introduce the girl with the lunch and whatever.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
it-
yeah.
and then like she goes running by Elizabeth Zott because she's actually the producer's daughter. You think that that's what's her name in the beginning?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The reason why I liked that Harriet had a dissatisfied marriage is because she ends up with that producer.
Yeah.
I know.
I like that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Mm.
Happy endings. That's why.
Yeah, I like that part in the book better too, with Harriet, how she was there, because also another mother figure, right, to come in and help her.
And she
too,
was
so-
strong too in her own way, right? Because she was
Yeah.
trapped in what is probably a fairly common example of relationships at that time, and
Mhm.
still doing what she has to do or like living her life, you know, finding a way to go on, even though her reality is a nightmare.
And I love how she fought her own biases because she kept seeing strange men coming in and out of the house. Remember how Elizabeth
Was helping the
other
yeah.
guys at Hastings, right? And so she checked her own bias and came over because she's like, oh, I remember what it's like to have a newborn, came over and then saw what was really happening. So I thought that was really nice. Yeah.
I also like that she's like, I'll get up at 4 a.m. Do you know what I mean? Like all of it made sense because she's trying to spend as little time as possible with her dumb husband.
Yeah.
And so she's like, yep, I'll come over at 4 so you can go row and I'll like
Be here when she's home from school.
The mushroom episode, the TV.
Loved it.
I know, right? It was just brilliant. Yeah, it was cute.
And how Walter was like, oh shit. Like she's telling everyone at home how to poison their horrible husbands. Like I get it, but like get it.
Yeah.
So getting fired.
Yeah. It's funny because she was funny too, right? Without meaning to be funny because she's a very serious person. So even remember the soup cans? She's like,
yes.
Yeah, I'll tell everybody about this. Sure, no problem. Well, you'll save time because you'll kill your family off and you won't have to make them food. Oh, that was pretty cute. And again, holding true to herself. So not even thinking about, well, I should just check.
I could lose my job or any of it.
Right.
That's another thing that the series sucked at. That when she promoted the spam, she gave in to something. She would never give in to anything. And in the show, they made her be like, I'll promote this.
Because I have to.
Was it spam? No, it wasn't spam. It was like, it's not lard.
Lard? Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Something
not the
like
lard.
that.
It's Crisco. She was like promoting that.
Oh.
She would have never
done that.
Yeah, she was
So I
influenced
hated
by that she might lose her job or whatever, right?
Did the
Later.
screenwriter never read the book? Do you think? Why would you alter something that's so deeply important and ingrained in a character? Why would you alter that?
I don't think he got it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like he didn't actually understand the character and he didn't actually understand those themes that were all impacted by the small different changes that were made to the screenplay. It could have been 2 seasons. You know, it could have ended with Calvin dying and then the next season could have been the whole cooking at 6 or whatever.
Great idea.
Cover at 6.
It's a great idea.
Thank you very much.
I think you should redo it because I think
I should be the screenwriter. Well, me and Sarah, what were we talking about? We rewrote Killers of the Flower Moon
We
way
did.
better.
Yeah, we
In
sure
theory. I mean, we just talked about it. It's not actually pen to paper or anything, but
someone make them knock at your door to take you up on that.
I don't know how great it would be if all we ever did is rewrite things that have already been written. I don't know who would buy those scripts, but we could.
that could be a whole new thing.
Ooh.
Like we could have like a little
Who did it better?
because there's other people that probably feel like us, right? Like just like there's probably people out there who obviously liked it enough to produce it. I bet you there's people out there that are more diehard to the story. Okay, for Flower Moon, the storytelling was absolutely lacking.
For sure.
There's so many options for telling a good story with that story. For this one, it's like you didn't even need to change anything.
No, I
The
felt the
author
same
did
way.
it perfectly fine.
Yeah. Why bother, right? I think that would make a good gig. I like the final episode of Game of Thrones. Lots of people would love to see that redone. So that could be a new gig. It's redoing bad.
Right.
That would be actually, I think that, like I really do think
I'll
there's.
start a new company called We Did It Better.
Yes.
Done better.
Yeah. That's the title of it. I'd tune in.
Scripts
My
done
goodness.
better.
Yeah.
Totally. And we could have a whole thing where it's like, you need to watch episodes 1 to 4 because we didn't fuck with those. But then it started to go sideways. So here's how. But then we'd have to get all the actors back. Could you imagine? What would be better is if we did it ourselves.
You're
It's really
sewing the
low-
costumes
It's really low budget.
at night.
And I'm playing Calvin and Sarah's playing 6:30.
But you know what? I would get that pencil right this time.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely be. You could be Zott.
You could have pencil. You could
With
do
a
that.
pencil. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's one thing that would make it in. But I wonder if that, I mean, I don't wonder. I'm quite sure that that's why the episodes weren't as successful as perhaps they could have been, right?
Mm.
Too much was changed and it was a good book.
They missed the essence of that movement.
Yeah.
It's like super feminist being like, take us seriously.
Yes.
And
yeah.
he didn't get that.
Yeah.
Like,
how nonsensical it is to not be taken seriously as a woman. It's just, we have all the same DNA. Like, why? It's just nonsense. So,
And Elizabeth Zott really portrayed the character, how nonsensical it is. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I loved about her, because the way she reacted to when people did that, it was like, what nonsense are you saying to me right now? I
Mhm.
need to get back to my serious business. That's exactly the same as your serious business, because we're the same. Like,
and it makes me
Yeah.
think the screenwriter actually, really didn't get her character, because even having Calvin teach her how to swim, it's like, oh, she needs the man to teach her how to swim.
she would have learned by herself.
It was like, don't worry, we just won't flip the boat. And then she ended up joining the 6 instead of just the 2 of them, because she can't swim. Like, it wasn't
Right.
like,
That's
oh, I need you
stupid.
to help me. Let's have
It's a
romantic
version of
moment in the
rescuing.
pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just another rescue. She didn't need rescuing from anyone ever.
No, and she pushed against it too, right? She
Yes.
never would have. Yeah. Well, that's too bad. That's a real miss. It's a real miss.
Yes.
Yes. But I liked it.
When we
overall.
write it again, you'll see.
Anything else that stood out?
Last
Okay.
thoughts. I guess we all recommend it. And okay, I recommend the book, obviously, but I wouldn't recommend the show.
I thought that we are saving this for our personal journals.
Oh yeah, and maybe I actually said in my personal journal I recommended the show. But now that I'm rehashing the show, I'm like, not the show.
Well, we always do. When I'm listening to the podcasts, we all finish with our recommendations, and then it goes into personal journals, and then we recommend again or
No,
not,
that's true. So we don't need to.
depending.
That's true. We don't need to go into it.
But
Okay,
let's
final
have-
thoughts. Then.
Yeah, final thoughts. How do you do a final thought without a recommendation? I will say what I've already said, which is the show was disappointing and the movie was a wonderful, like we were mentioning, Virginia, you read it on
movie?
the beach and your friend or whoever challenged you to say, you're never going to finish that. Like, you're on vacation. So how did that go for you? How was that experience? Was it hard to return to the book to finish it?
Not even a little bit.
There you
Even with a pina colada calling my name. 'Cause it's a
Right.
book. Yeah.
Even with multiple distractions.
Yeah, exactly.
Highly
Yeah, I read it
readable.
twice, and I still went back to read it every night after, because I was reading The Big Friendly Giant with my kids. After I would read that to them for bedtime, I would immediately be running back to read the book I've already read. But it was just like, I read it, I watched the series, and I was like, I can't wait to read this again, actually.
Yeah, it's just such a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I obviously agree. I was really looking forward to this one because I'd heard some really great things. And then near the end, I was starting to hear some mixed reviews about it. But I'm so glad that I read this book and we had this opportunity with Book Interrupted to read it too, because it was amazing. And I felt like it was everything that I've always thought about feminism and equality and how I would have felt too if I, was transplanted in a different generation, like, so let's say the 60s, like, would I have thought like, Mrs. Frask, or would I have thought like Elizabeth Zott, based on propaganda, based on what societal norms say? And it's exactly what I thought, like what Elizabeth Zott's character embodies about, being independent and being an equal human in the world. I loved it. I thought it was really great. I mean, there was some aspects about it that like maybe I tweak a little bit, but I think overall it was a solid book. I think that everybody should read.
And like, bravo for your first one.
Yes. How do you?
Right?
First one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Her next book. That's a
Yeah.
hard, because it's
Think
so
a hard act to follow.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'll read her next book for sure.
Yeah, just because
it's
of the first
so
one.
enjoyable. Yeah.
I will read her next book, and even if I don't like it, I'll read her third book. That's how good her first book was.
Whoa, okay.
She would love to hear that. My goodness, that must be like the greatest review for an
No, you have
author
earned my
ever.
trust, and it will take multiple
That's
books to
nice.
lose it.
Yeah.
Apple
That's
TV, they need to do better, but
Mhm.
It's
Well, that's
getting
it.
there.
It's
Yeah.
getting there.
No, I thought
There's
this was
women
great.
directors, so it's getting there.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
nice that more and more of the messaging comes out, what sort of reality is what women go through. So whether you want to hear it or not, I believe it. No, it's good. I liked it.
All right.
All right.
All right.
That's it.
Very impressive. We ended literally
Right.
as the clock
Odd time.
rolled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Let's
great.
not jinx it,
That's
but
great
today
fun.
was a very good day for timing and
Yes.
getting it all together.
It
Awesome.
worked today. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
This interruption is brought to you by Unpublished. Do you want to know more about the members in Book Interrupted? Go behind the scenes? Visit our website at www.bookinterrupted.com.
Book Interrupted.
Hi, Lindsay here, and this interruption is brought to you by gas. I'm sure you've all had it. I don't really dairy, especially cow's milk, and me don't sit super well together. And, it's always hidden in places. And I had some Indian food yesterday, and of course there was yogurt, and I was fine. I was staying home. I didn't care, and it was delicious. And then later on in the night, I was so gassy and so smelly. My poor partner. It was like, they joke about like being under the covers. You can't move the covers because if you move the covers, then the whole place smells. Yeah, that was me last night. And the poor guy, like, I know he knows because he knew I ate it. And, I'm not going to die or anything. It's just like so smelly. And like it just creeps up on you. You're like, da-da-da-da, I'm fine. And then you're like, oh, don't come in this room. Don't come in this room. But because our apartment's not that big, yeah, it kind of just wafts everywhere. So, yeah, that's my interruption. Just smelly gas.
Book Interrupted.
It's book report time. We're going to find out from each member their final thoughts and do they recommend the book? Let's listen.
I'm Virginia, and this is my final book report for Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. So I would 100% recommend this book to anyone that has an interest in the subject matter, in gender equality, in science, and just a really nice story. I do think that this may not go down as like my top 3 books of all time, maybe in the top 10. I'll always recommend this fondly about that. I think that it is a really nice story, like I said, with a really complex character. There was some tragedy in there as well, and the author went off the rails a little bit from how I would have thought the story would have flowed, in her brain. But all in all, it was really well done. And I think that, especially for Book Interrupted and a book club, I think there's so many themes in it that you can really dive into that would make a really great option if someone is also looking to choose a book for their book club. It's a really good one. So I would 10 out of 10 recommend this, but it doesn't go in top 3 books, maybe top 10. All right. I hope everyone has enjoyed reading this book, and I would love to hear any comments if you liked it or didn't. All right. Thanks.
I have a lot to say about Lessons in Chemistry. Meredith here. I missed the group discussion, and I'm sorry that I did because I have a lot to say. You'll notice that I'm wearing kind of a little dress that I thought was appropriate for the book. And I've got my number 2 pencil in my hair. I really love the character of Elizabeth Zott. She is the heroine that we need in even more books. She knew who she was, and she didn't back down from anything. She was strong and unapologetic, a really great role model. And she believed in the women in the story, and it kind of made the reader seem seen as well. What a great book. So, the most of what I have to say has to do with the limited series, the TV version of Lessons in Chemistry, which totally missed the mark. So this book was really about how women are just the same as men in the way that they are who they are, and they don't want to be defined by their gender. You know, Elizabeth Zott was not a woman chemist, she was a chemist. The fact that there had to be a qualifier, which is what drove her nuts. But I guess whoever decided to write the screenplay for the TV series thought to themselves, this story needs something. Let me see. Maybe a little bit more misogyny, maybe a little bit less feminism. We're going to insert more of the patriarchy into this story. And I don't know what they were thinking. So there were so many differences that just made this TV series just so unenjoyable to watch. Can I just go through the list? Because it just drove me nuts. In the book, Elizabeth Zott was a chemist, and people kept on thinking she was a lab tech, and she's like, I'm not a lab tech. And instead they just made her a lab tech in the series, which is like right there. I mean, what's the point? In the book, she needs to make a little bit extra money. She's doing the work of her male colleagues to get money. She's doing their work because she's more capable, and yet she doesn't have the opportunities that she could have if she was a man. And in the series, she's selling Tupperware. That is not her identity. She would find so many other ways to make money other than selling Tupperware. And I get they're trying to like make it retro and insert things, but they totally missed the mark on Elizabeth Zott. In the limited series, her producer is giving her a pep talk so she can feel confident going on camera. She didn't need help feeling confident. And that character, his character, was the one who lacked confidence. He was supposed to be a contrast. I was gonna say incompetent. The man who's not confident, getting his confidence from a woman who knows who she is and is very sure and very comfortable in her own skin. In part of the TV series, she says something like, I don't know who I am if I don't do the show, which, I mean, at that point, I just wanted to turn it off. And at the same time, I wanted to watch it just so that I could talk about it here. And that wasn't her. She didn't like being on TV. She almost found it beneath her. And that's part of it, is that the fact that she thought it was beneath her and she did this big thing, but she grew as a character because she realized that it was important to her audience so that they could feel seen. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to lose something by losing this show. There were so many things that they did that was just not true to the book, not true to the character, and changing the story so it's more comfortable under a male gaze rather than a female gaze. Yeah, I just, there's so much. The investor at the end also went from being a very strong woman, sure about herself, and talking about some hard issues, and they really, really dampened it down. Let's just not upset anybody. Just like the teacher character in the book versus the show. In the book, she was kind of this small person who was judgmental and did not see her daughter for who she was. And in the show, they're like, we don't want to upset the teachers. Instead, what we'll do is we'll make it the teacher sees her daughter and realizes she needs to be in a gifted program instead of being another person that made it difficult for a girl or a woman to succeed in this male-dominated world. You know, all this stuff. I hated the series. It kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And my husband, who hasn't read the book, he's watching the last episode with me. He's like, is this for real? Like, it was bad. Like, he's like, this is bad writing. And he hadn't even read the book. So it was groan worthy for him too. In fact, I almost felt like it was gaslighting me to the point where I reread the book. I read the book another time after watching the series to be like, did I make that up? Did I make up Elizabeth Zott and who I thought she was? And the answer is no. So if you like the book, don't waste your time and watch the show. And if you hated the book, well, you might just love it. So, you know, you can go either way on these things, but I don't think you're going to like them both. That's it. That's my rant. It was really long, but that's it. I'll see you next time.
Final book report for Lessons in Chemistry by Kim. I loved this book. This book was fantastic. You've heard in our episode why I think it's fantastic. I think I really need to change when I do my book reports. I keep on doing them after we have our group discussion, and then I struggle to have new things to talk about or say. So that's what's happening right now. But I really did like this book. Like, the book was really good. It's one of those books that you look forward to going back to. It's not
a chore or it didn't feel like an assignment to have to read it. Like, I wanted to read it. I will recommend it to others. I will recommend it to you right now. Dear reader, read the book. So good. Now, with that being said, the Apple TV series I didn't finish because it was different than the book, and I really liked the book, and so I didn't want to keep on watching the TV series because it was veering off. Yeah, I'm surprised by it only because when I read a book and I love it, I definitely want to watch the series, but that's exactly why I stopped watching the series, because it wasn't the book that I loved anymore. It was whatever the series was doing. I would still recommend the series to people, I guess, because it's still a pretty good story, but if people wanted to know which one they should read, the answer is in the question. Read the book. The series is fine, but the book is just so much better. Like, this is a classic case of book was way better than movie, or in this case, TV series. Classic. Things that were changed in the TV series, A, didn't need to be changed, and B, dramatically impacted some of the best, like some of the things that were best about the book by changing these little things that there was no need to change. I don't understand in the show why certain things were changed. I don't know that it eased the storytelling. I don't know that it doesn't, there's not an apparent reason why those decisions were made. And so it's hard for me to, get on board with it, because as far as I can tell, the book was perfect. So whoever made The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption into a movie should have done Lessons in Chemistry, because they did a good job. They didn't mess with perfection, and the result was a good thing to watch as well as a good thing to read. Unfortunately, in this case, the results are not the same. So if you only can do one, definitely read the book. If you have time to do both, read the book first. I wonder if you watched the show first and then read the book, what you'd think. The book is just so much better. That is all I have to say about it for now. But definitely recommend Lessons in Chemistry. Super good read. Great storytelling. And then that's my recommendation for the show. Watch it if you want, but also don't watch it if you don't want to, because you're not missing that much.
I have read this book before. And I also, if you listen to the season 3 recap, thought it would be my favorite. I really like this book. I love the character Elizabeth Zott so much. It's really good. I watched the series too, and I think the casting was good in my opinion, but I didn't like it as much as the book. I think they did an okay job. They just changed a lot of things, and I can understand the changes. I'm sure it makes it better series, the things that they changed, but I like the book better. I think what I'm realizing in this season is I actually don't mind the movies and series completely on their own. I usually like the book better, although I guess sometimes I like the movie better in this season. This particular book is really good, and the ending of the book is, in my opinion, better than the ending of the show. So I want to put that out there. What else do I want to say? This book has a lot of women's rights and, fighting the patriarchy, and I just like how she just keeps on moving forward. I really loved her relationship with her partner in life, soulmate. She calls him her soulmate, Calvin. There's so much character development in the book with each one of the characters that you're really so invested in all the characters in this book. The author just did such a great job at it. I mean, I'm sure even today it's hard to be a chemist and a woman. Just generally being in a field that has more men, which I have been in the past. I mean, it's better, but it's still not perfect. It just isn't. There was Would You Rather off the shelf, and I went down a rabbit hole thinking maybe I'll tie it into this book, Lessons in Chemistry, and see if we can find feminist one, but it was just so disheartening. I found some articles about women writing it for things that they've experienced. It just makes you depressed when you think about it. Things like, would you rather be told to smile or always be underestimated as incompetent? It's just ugh. Or for me, would you rather be asked to get coffee or be called eye candy for a trade show? What would you rather?
Anyway, so I think it stirs up a lot of emotions if you're a woman reading it, but I also really love the dog in this book because she teaches him to read, and they also have a voice of the dog in the book. He speaks. He's a real character, has thoughts and feelings. It makes the book so endearing. Anyway, I highly recommend it. It still is my pick so far for the season. So if you haven't read it, you should read it. All right, that's it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Book Interrupted. If you'd like to see the video highlights from this episode, please go to our YouTube channel, Book Interrupted. You can also find our videos on www.bookinterrupted.com.
Are you interested in joining the conversation and having your comment played on the podcast? Simply find a quiet place and record a voice memo. Then send it to connect@bookinterrupted.com. Or you could do it the old-fashioned way and leave us a voicemail at 416-900-8603. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Book Interrupted. Never forget, every child matters.